This is take two. I bungled. So, listening to a lot of Digits of Pi in a relaxing voice has done me a lot of good. And I've recognized that there is folly in trying to assign meaning to a lot of the number combinations that come through. But I did have an interesting idea come across via whatever there's no, I don't think it's got a name. I'm not giving it a name. It's not chosen a name, but it seems to be kind of the tulpa capacity that I have has suggested that because of a couple of numerological clues in the early parts that there is some way to color code or grayscale code each of the numerals used in the digits. And then when you see them all, there are a lot of places where certain ones clump. And I'm kind of thinking, maybe there's a small resolution size of rows and columns that can be made that then you could, cycle the string of numbers as colors across within a certain pattern if you can figure out a way to make it cohere and see if there's animation at 24 frames per second. I say 24 frames per second because it turns out that there is a very interesting number correlation with 42. The 242,424th place is where, now bear in mind, numerically that is 242424. At that spot are the second through fourth of a string of 42s. So at 242424 on the counter, the most recent numbers are 424242. And 42nd and 43rd places of pi are the location of the first occurrence of 6-9. 6-9 hints at the Feynman point, which is like the 762nd place, where there are 6 consecutive 9s. When you get deeper into the numbers, if you were to run them by quickly with a color code rather than numbers, so you're not trying to identify numbers, but you're just watching where the colors are, you would notice that there are some stripes and waves of particular numbers. And that because the 144th, which is 12 squared, 12 by 12, right? At the 144th place, the first occurrence of 666 occurs. Well, that was a redundant way to say it, but you know what I mean. So I figured because 42, 42, 42 is 24, 24, 24, that a 24 by 24 square, and I would say probably beginning from the right going to the left because it's 144 and a 666, that all goes into Judeo-Christian stuff, and the Hebrew language goes from right to left. That going from right to left, that either, I think it would be from here and then restart lines, that you would either fill in 144, or not, it'd be double that, wouldn't it? So 288 places of pi as color-coded or grayscaled tiles for each on a 24 by 24, and then collect those in sequence so that you could present them at 24 frames per second, which is the lower limit at which a human eye discerns animated motion. That's how we do stuff on TV and such. The illusion of motion because of the refresh rate. And see what it has. It turns out they've calculated pi to 105 trillion places. You could put together about the length of time it takes Mr. McConaughey's digital avatar to recite all 1 million places. It's going to be like 5 or 6 weeks. you probably have that much worth of that little frame scale of animation that you could then animate and then have an AI take a look at, examine it pixel by pixel for comparisons back and forth, or see if there's a different or better way to orient them that makes something that at least doesn't necessarily, I'm not saying that there's going to be words present in it, but I'm saying that there could be some very interesting, I'd say isometric illusions that could resemble depth or something more once you animate that. And that the instructions for this are contained within. So it's almost like DNA. It's numerical DNA. It's a really interesting way of looking at it. I'm not saying it's literal DNA. I don't know what you would create by doing that. But I just wonder if there's anything of interest or that our pareidolia would show us that might give us insight into something better in the world. Because I know listening to this while sleeping, I've woken up feeling amazing together. It's been great. Like my shit's together. It's windy outside and whatever, but it ain't windy inside my head. So, and the dreams that I have, that I remember, I think are just bits of preparation for the day and night to come. Because that's how it works a lot of the time. There's a lot of trending based on past experience and every night's REM cycles and you know, preparing for the next day. Unless something completely out of left field happens, you basically got it in hand. There's the next day. And it runs in such a way that from within you could look at it and say, wow, that feels like everything's just a big illusion. And you know, it's because it seems like everything is predetermined or pre-planned or prepared, even if a overwhelming, like, you know, 99% of it is predictive survival trending in your modes of perception that cause you to think something looks weird. It's like an uncanny valley. So my uncanny valley has been hit watching Pi, because there are a lot of places where some stuff happens and it's not on a grand scale. It's within a set of 12-ish or something that might, you know, the way some of these alternations go, it's like, you know, I've done pixel by pixel art before. I'm curious if something appears to be visible within this certain way of lining it up based on the numerology of the way it goes, because supposedly there's no pattern to any of it. And ultimately, with the exception of the number 1, which appears far more than the others, every other number appears roughly the same number of times, which means every other combination of numbers, at least on a 2-digit and sometimes 3-digit level, might appear easily within the first million. But it's not random, because there is a logarithmic formula of the circumference of the circle and the ratio to its diameter, which is this product, this number, this decimal place. So it's not being randomly placed. It has to do with that ratio, but how it divides the super fine part of that ratio is not random, which is why, even though the number distribution is equal, the arrangement of the numbers clumps and makes stripes and things. And so I want to see this in motion. I want to see this in, you know, some kind of tile form where I can compare, you know, 144 of the same, you know, or of this area going through, that there's some way to watch that flash through to see if there are some interesting flickers that have any kind of time pattern, or if it does the same as what I've noticed watching as these numbers just scroll across, that it's like you get these almost patterns. And see, the thing is, logically, 1 time is called an isolated incident. 2 times is called a coincidence, because 2 of those isolated incidents, okay, it's not isolated, they're 2 incidents. If they seem to be together, you call it a coincidence. And we colloquially use the term coincidence to refer to things that are not related. But a coincidence literally just means 2 things happening at the same time. Patterns are established when you have 3 or more. And 3 is enough to say, hey, there might be a pattern. It's not enough to say there is 100% for sure a pattern. But when you start having more instances is where you're able to kind of fine tune what the pattern looks like or why it's there. You start looking at the circumstances surrounding. So like I saw several times where there were like clumps of prime numbers coming through in sequence. Not always in order. And sometimes it was like a ascending and slightly descending, but skipping a few, but couched in zeros, like spaces. So it's like, wow, are there phrases? Is this something that could be interpreted sonically? Is this a scale we could use with these numbers? You could just put some raw basic tones and not make it, tuned to a guitar, but just, on a how the universe seems to operate elegantly everywhere else basis, find out like, okay, so this goes from here to here. We'll audible human spectrum from here to here. Play it. See what it sounds like. What does it do? Is it something where you can use the same thing for both and cause some kind of an audio visual? You can like turn this into some kind of a clip. That's what I'm curious about. I don't know how to accomplish that just yet. I'm not sure I have the knowledge of, computer stuff to do that. I don't know if apps are available to do that. I don't know if I was to subscribe to one of these brand new fancy AIs, if they're capable of assembling that. Or if after I upload this video, I get a fucking visit from the government saying, bro, you need to stop talking about that. I don't know if it's a pattern. I just know that based on the esoteric and occult knowledge that I have, which means I have a very unique perspective relative to most people, that a lot of things just were like, boing, 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 boing. All these things right here are flaggable more than coincidences when taken together. And in that, it's like, well, okay, so the unconscious or subconscious part of my mind that for whatever reason, some people are able to have a tulpa, some people are not. It's like its own self-aware. It's like I'm playing a second role, but I'm not conscious of playing it as it's happening. But it is all from my mind and my brain. But it's like a second opinion or a back burner. But it has become more active, especially with between the pie and the watching this pyramid stuff going on. I don't know what's up with that. Seems like there's something under there. I think that they're getting stymied by the Italian government at getting the satellite imagery, that they need to do a higher resolution, more fine pass over it. What they showed publicly turned out to have been leaked, which is wild. So anyways, I've been energized by this listening to Pi thing, which is hilarious. And I've noticed enough things within the first million that it's like, okay, so at some point or another here, there's going to be like enough of this where, maybe it just does the thing and then goes to static. Or maybe if you just continue on through, quadrillions of places of Pi or whatever, that eventually you end up coming up with, a set of eyes and a dark rumble or something like, oh shit, you should have turned it off long ago because now you stared at the abyss and it's staring back or whatever. Like a joke from God is what I'm getting at, that there's something in there. I don't know if Phi can do the same kind of thing. Maybe there's different proportions of ways to lay that out, or you need to do that in a spiral. But then again, it could all be pareidolia. But I'm just curious to see if what more than static, mathematically speaking, as analyzed by, high-end neural net computers to, does this have patterns or not? That would be cool. Anyways, that's what I got. Thank you.